You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get to our first discussion. Now, education is known as the bedrock of any society with quality impact on both the citizens, family, and the country at large. While tertiary education in Nigeria may have witnessed different stages with challenges from strikes, poor amenities, among others, about 2 million graduates still emerge from the universities across the country. How can we better position Nigeria's education system, especially the universities, in a positive light to create more job opportunities and better skillful graduates? This is some of the things we'll be touching on. And joining us on Zoom is the Vice Chancellor, University of Benin, and also the Chairman, Committee of Vice Chancellors of Federal Universities in Nigeria, Professor Lillian Salami. Professor, good morning. It's good to have you join us now.
Today.
Great. Good morning.
Good.
Now, let's start it this way. Some people have, in fact, I recall several years ago when Professor Charles Soludo was the CBN governor in Nigeria, there was a statement he made sometimes saying that graduates in Nigeria, sometimes many of them over about 70%, according to what he said, are not employable. Meanwhile, we churn out graduates from universities and tertiary education institutions every single year. Talk to us about the challenges in quality of education or the otherwise of it in a minute.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I think that is a little bit harsh to say that over 70% of the graduates coming out of the universities are not employable. I think if we look at the statistics, and I think we must be a little bit more scientific when we come out with such statistics, that our students are doing exceptionally well when they leave universities, and when they go out, we train students not just for the university, for Nigeria, but internationally. And if you look at those who are really making it outside this country, the shores of this country, they are our graduates. So it is wrong to say that. But having said that, that is not to say that our university system, is void of challenges. Of course, we have numerous challenges facing us. But I think within the context of, the availability of funds, the availability of human resources, the availability of materials and, infrastructure and all of that, we are trying to do our very best. And I think that is also telling, in the output of students that we churn out to the society. So it would be wrong to actually just take a general statement that 70% of those who come out of the university may be a little bit lower or much lower than that. And that is what I think we should be looking at, and not just using this brush to just say that, students who churn out are not employable. That's not true.
You just mentioned now a vital point about funding, and that was greatly reflected in the eight-month-old strike of the university lecturers in 2022. What's your perspective to this, big issue of funding? Some have said universities should be granted full autonomy, as government has, stated over and over again that it cannot, bear the burden solely. What do you think?
Well, the issue with funding, and there is no educational system globally that ever gets enough money. Now, what we need to do is to sit down with government, who is our principal, and look at areas where they can come in to assist. Right now, what we're virtually getting from government is just the remuneration, staff salaries and things of that nature. And yet, we're even saying that we are not paid adequately for the amount of work that we put in. So we need to have a discussion. Somebody has to pay for education. And so if the government is saying that they want to fund the university, then of course the action must be seen. Salaries will not be what will run the university. We need more funding to run the university. But if they are also claiming that they cannot take the bill, totally, then somebody has to pay. And so incidentally, the students' parents will have to come together and pay for the services. There is nowhere that you get free services. But again, like I said, we need to discuss adequately, and then, come up with a formula that is, acceptable to everyone. Government tells all what they can do, what they can also do with the students who actually are, indigent students that may not be able to come up with any form of fee, if we must have a leveling ground for training our children. So I think it's really a serious business. So it's not the business where you just sit and say, I will pay this or that. We need to have a proper discussion. And I have said to some of my colleagues that the best thing to do is let us have, education summits with stakeholders that are really, really stakeholders that know how to drive the system, and then come up with positions. If federal government wants to come in, what are the areas that you think you want to come in to assist the education system or tertiary education? And if at that point, then who takes the other bill? Somebody has to. Someone has to. And I think that is where the discussion should go.
All right, Professor, still dwelling on the issue of funding. Now, the point there is a lot of people, of course, we easily make reference to universities abroad where we see all sorts of grants and foundation assistance from different external organizations. I wonder how challenging that is in Nigeria, especially for public universities, to access those kind of funding outside of government and all of that, because we've seen some private universities, attract some kind of funding from companies, corporations, foundations of different kinds, handling different kind of projects within the universities.
Yes, of course. Let me say that the public universities are not in any way inferior to these other universities. So it's not as if we are not trying from our own end to get funding. But if you listen carefully to the last education summit, part of what we emphasize is that the public sector must begin to look at areas where they can assist the university if we want the public universities to survive. And I, for instance, brought up a situation where we have research outputs sitting in the universities that are geared towards, of course, driving the economy of this country. Rather than find entrepreneurs or private sectors coming to the university, challenging the university, this is what we need to do. It's easier for us to just run across to countries who are known for manufacturing. And so they flood the university, flood the nations with this product. Whereas we have institutions, universities, that actually, if you challenge them, can come up with the same thing. So we need to put our mouth where, put our money where our mouth is. That if we must help the institutions, we must be able to partner with the private sector. They must play their role because, that is the only way to go.
Right. Of course, we cannot talk enough about, how to enhance the university structures through whatever model. Like you said, now it's an ongoing discussion whether to bring in the private sector and, of course, for the universities themselves to also look inwards on how they can better the system through money on ground. But then there is also some concerns from quarters who say that this university by university system of funding also breeds corruption and of course, leaving already traumatized parents, having to grapple with the issue of suspicious fees here and there. What do you make of this argument?
Again, it's very easy when you are not wearing the shoes to continue to judge whether it's pinching here or there. I think a lot of these, parents or public outcry that universities are having, different fees charged to students. Yes, we may have a few. Again, we're all fighting education corruption. And so we may have a few of that. But generally, what we get from the students right now to augment what is coming from the federal government is little or nothing, really. compared to what we need to drive the system. Like I started, funding of tertiary institutions is a huge investment. And so when you find those little corruption here and there, we have zero tolerance for such. But generally, I think the outcry of the public, it's exaggerated most times. Take, for instance, somebody who's reading medicine in the public universities comes and pays 65,000 naira for the year. And then you expect to have that drive the system. Of course, it will not. It will not be able to sustain such program. So what we are trying to do there is look at what it will cost to train a child that is in science or in humanity or in the medical area and see how that can actually be brought to the table in the discussion. We cannot just sit and say government, can give us so much money, and yet that is not enough to drive the system. For instance, what you get from our principal now for a month is about 11 million. 11 million cannot do anything in the system, where we are paying an electricity bill of over 60-something million per month. Somebody has to pay for these utilities. Somebody has to pay for other things that will give quality education that we all yearn for.
All right, let's talk about the universities' rankings generally. I think the Times Higher Education ranking of universities just came out, and University of Ibadan and University of Lagos seem to top. And your institution, I think University of Benin, comes sixth in the ranking. From the ratings, in comparison to previous years, it seems Nigerian universities are coming up and are stepping up. But let's talk about the quality of it. It's one thing to get ranked, which is good. It's another thing to see the tangible quality of it, because a lot of Nigerian youths are preferring to go abroad to study abroad and not study at home. What is that thing about universities back home that meet the standard for Nigerians to still have the interest of studying in universities in Nigeria?
Well, the criteria that is put out by most of these bodies are clear and spelled out. And so part of it is the visibility, your research output, how you are collaborating with other institutions. What is the ratio of foreign students you have, foreign lecturers you have? So there are quite a number of criteria set out that we must meet for us to meet, really work up our ranking. And so the universities are trying. Now, in terms of output, of course, the higher you get in the ranking, simply means that you're doing the right thing in terms of educating your students, the output, research output. So we're driving all of this, and the impact is on our students. And so the students you get out today, as we get higher in the grades, in the ranking, of course, will reflect that. So universities are trying as much as possible. Like I said, those criteria are spelled out. And as we try to meet those criteria, the output of that also translates to, cascades down to the training of our students.
Right, and there's also an advocacy. This is also not new to observers, talking about the need to tweak the curriculum, the Nigerian curriculum in our universities, especially the public universities. Where are we now on that? At least you, of course, occupying the enviable position of
Yes.
the VC of the University of Benin, and of course in the body of vice chancellors of Nigeria. Where are we at now in upgrading our curricula?
Well, the curricula that we have now, we are just rejiggling. And the NUC has started that is our regulatory body. They have brought out, just of recent, I think last month, brought out the new, baseline, level for us to rejiggle our own curriculum. So they are doing that, and I think they are fine-tuning all of that. So that again will serve as a benchmark for all universities, especially the public universities. And so once this is released, we are then, forced to tailor our own curriculum to meet these new baselines that have been set by NUC. For us in the University of Benin, we put up committees that are looking at what we have now. We must, of course, have curriculum that is global friendly, because our children we graduate our children not just, again, like I said, for the national consumption only, but also that they should be able to compete globally with their peers in other countries. So we are constantly working on our curricula to ensure that the curricula our curricula are global friendly. So, like I said, NUC has just brought out one now, and then we are all tailoring towards that.
All right. Emerging as the chairman of committee of VCs, of course, goes with a lot of responsibility, I must say. But talk to us basically, what are you bringing on board? What are you going to do differently? Because one thing in the minds of Nigerians, especially students and parents, is that Nigerian universities go without strikes. Talk to us from that window.
Well, the CBC has been here for over 60 years now. So it's been playing its role. But for us, most of us who are practitioners, and I use that word, who are, at the arena right now, find that we are not visible enough. We are not most times carried along with decisions that actually affect us. So my team, we've decided that we must take the bull by the horn, and that whatever has to happen in our universities, we must have input, total input into whatever comes to the universities, because we are better, to give the judgment that will better our universities. So my administration truly wants to reposition the role of the vice chancellors in running the affairs of the university. So you will begin to see us more visible in terms of when issues concerning the tertiary education is being discussed at all levels. We find that we must be very crucial at all discussions for us to effectively run the universities. It's not easy for somebody to sit outside the university and then be giving you instructions without really knowing how those instructions can effectively add value to the education system. So I think that is where we want to go, whether in terms of conflict, whether in terms of discussion, whether in terms of even advocating. We will play very crucial role from henceforth.
And of course, your position, your twin positions, also, will come with, will I say, engagement with university lecturers. What are you bringing differently now to the table? Of course, you rose through the ranks from a university lecturer now to the position of vice chancellor. How are you given some form of, will I say, better listening and ear now to the grievances of university lecturers?
Look, it is a tough job, because you're dealing with persons who, let me just quickly use the example of what has just happened, the 8 months of strike that we went through, ASU went through. Now, these are persons who were not paid, who had to borrow money to sustain themselves. It's not easy to tell a 10-year-old child, for instance, that I've not been paid and therefore we can't put food on your table. Now, these persons have they've reported back to work. It's difficult to really enforce, without at least trying to see how you listen to them, you try to parley with them, you try to, encourage them, because the motivation is very low. The desire to work is also very low, because some of these persons have not been able to pay back the money that they borrowed. And then you want them to come and train. So it's tough. For vice chancellors, it's very tough. Enforcement becomes a problem. But what I continue to do, and I'm sure my peers in other universities continue to do, is that we reach out to these lecturers and continue to motivate them and talk to them, to their conscience. Like I had special senate where I had to tell my lecturers that please, for crying aloud, do not, redirect your frustration on these children. These are our children. We need to, in spite of everything, we need to mentor them, we need to teach them, we need to counsel them. And so these are huge responsibility put on individuals that have not been paid over, 8 months, and they just started getting their salaries. So it's tough. But, like I just said, we have to use all the other means to try to motivate them, even when we know that they don't have their salaries have not been paid. And I'd like to use this opportunity in pleading with the government to kindly begin to pay these 8 months. And it will shock you that even vice chancellors were not paid, even when we were working, because the universities were never closed down. We never closed down the university. So we're all working, the two vice chancellors were all coming, principal officers were working every day, and yet we're not paid. So it's difficult. It's difficult times, but we continue to plead and, mentor and as well as counsel these lecturers that in spite of all, let us work for the simple, belief that we want to develop this country and that this country belongs to all of us.
All right. Your institution, University of Benin, produced the first female vice chancellor in Nigeria. We remember Professor Grace Alele Williams, whom a lot of people use as an icon of knowledge and as an icon of equality, gender balance, and all of that. And she proved herself even beyond where people expected. And more than 30 years after, I think you're the next, if I have the records right, you're the next female VC in University of Benin. Talk to us basically from the window of the girl child. What is your dream for the girl child, for people who look up to and aspire to achieve and become successful and become leaders like you have been, like Professor Alele Williams had been?
Yes. That's 36 years ago, she was the vice chancellor here. And after that, before this next vice chancellor, a female. In every discussion and every gatherings, what I always say, for instance, is to tell the girl child that the beauty may go, whatever it is will go, but whatever you have in terms of intellectual, placement and capabilities, is what is going to endure you. And so, and I'm sure a lot of other vice chancellors who are female, incidentally, we're about 15 now out of the 200 and some 20 female vice chancellors out of the 200 plus. So we're coming gradually, but all we're doing is mentoring these children, telling them that education is the highest legacy you can acquire and give to yourself or, give to your children, your girl child, because all other qualities will come and go, but, your intellectual capability would remain. And so we stand out high there and continue to mentor these younger ones. And then, of course, in terms of training, we are also telling parents that it is better to send your children to school than to engage them in other vices that will bring quick rewards that are not enduring. So that is what we are doing it from our own corner.
Right, and hitting about 2 years now since you assumed office as the Vice Chancellor of UniBen, what would you like to be remembered for? I'm sure you must have weathered, a notable number of storms. Only recently I was reading about how you were able to deal with the issue of the controversy regarding the late registration fees and, your explanations to the students. Talk to us briefly about that, and then let's also talk about what you would like to be remembered for as the VC of UniBen.
Okay, this is my third year, fourth year, and that's my penultimate year. It's been quite a journey for me. I came into this position only 3 months before COVID, had the lockdown. We had the lockdown for almost 9-10 months. and then the incessant strike warnings, and then the major one that just lasted 8 months. So effectively, in the 3 years and 1 month that I have been as Vice Chancellor, I've had almost 2 years of problems. You also mentioned the student protests. But having said that, I have had, cooperation from the university. I have worked with wonderful team members. And I think if you come to the University of Benin, we are rewriting the narrative of this university. Anyone who comes into the University of Benin knows that the business here is education. So I want to be remembered as somebody who actually brought out the University of Benin to the limelight, brought out lots of visibility, and also in terms of training of the children, that we are able to train children for the future, not necessarily for those that are just now being trained. So that they are futuristic and also can compete anywhere. So it's an all-round thing. But like I said, I want to be remembered that this is the Vice Chancellor who actually, has rewritten the history or the narrative of the University of Benin. And I'm very proud, with all humility, to tell you that if you come here, I am sure you will know that there is somebody, who is manning the affairs of this university.
Okay. All right. There are times we hear reports. In fact, some make headlines of how relationships between lecturers and students in unhealthy way. And we've had instances where reports where students have been harassed by lecturers, cajoled into different kind of unwholesome relationship. Talk to us how University of Benin is creating a platform where students can go to school, engage with anybody freely without harassment and without falling victim of any kind to lecturers.
Okay, like I said and mentioned earlier on, this administration has zero tolerance for any education, corruption. And of course, the one that is always being discussed is the harassment by, lecturers or students. When I first came here, the first thing I did was to create a line that I captioned, see something, say something, see something, and say something. And it's a line that I pick 24/7. As long as you have what the issues we have, and I continue to say this, is that the students are never forthcoming. So even when we say, yes, they will cry initially and say, oh, somebody is harassing me. And you say, okay, let's investigate this. Remember that we are in a system where, we are governed by rules and regulations. So you ask the students, come out to say, and at that point, they tell you that no, that they will be victimized. I have even taken the step further to say, look, I will send all your scripts to be marked by, some other, lecturers from other universities. So be rest assured that you are protected 100% by me. But even at that, parents will come and say, no, I don't want my child. Well, having said that, the few that we have gotten, we have dealt with. I am even advocating a situation where when we get such persons, we should publicly publish their names in dailies, newspaper, tube media, so that for life they will serve as deterrent to others who would want to dare. And I'm sure that we will get to that point very soon. Okay. But for us, it is zero tolerance, and I don't care who you are. Once you cross that line, you will be dealt with, sanctioned adequately.
Okay, we have to wrap it up here now. Professor Lillian Salami, the Vice Chancellor, University of Benin, and Chairman Committee of Vice Chancellors of Federal Universities of Nigeria. Thank you so much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
And thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.